Of Rural Development 2019 conference, I would like to start our panel discussion. So maybe the remaining, please take a seat. Good. Okay, so we're ready to start, and now we do have Science and Business Forum. I would call also it's not only science and business, but policy also, because we do have several representatives for the ministries, the ministry responsible for agriculture affairs and energy affairs. And the topic of this session is on bioeconomy development strategies. We will try to review the good practices in introducing bioeconomy innovation, circular bioeconomy, and touch also the aspects which is very important is the climate change, environment pollution, and also how to match different interests, because it's also sometimes conflicting between environment, social and economic affairs. And maybe as we touch this climate change topic, probably it will be fashionable to start with some scary statistics on extinction of humanity and environment. But I would like to start with news. Recently, on Monday, we do have in our planet the meeting of United Nations dedicated to climate change action. And it was quite widely discussed in the media because of a young girl who came there to express her concerns on the climate change issues. And I would like to ask you, raise your hands who heard Swedish activist Greta Thunberg speech, or at least the most heard. And I would like to ask whether you think, please, who would comply with the argument, think that this, because there was very polarization of the opinions, whether this is effective way of communicating and moving climate change issues and discussion regarding these issues forward. So please who will support Greta and her quite edgy rhetoric? So we have quite okay. So we have auditorium who are concerned also. So therefore, we will talk about, and I would like to introduce our speakers. And we will try to touch these aspects, first of all, on climate change and in the context of agriculture. And here we have Zigmas Medingis, which is Counselor of the Division of Crop Production and Agri-Environment at the Ministry of Agriculture of the Republic of Lithuania. From the perspective of energy, we do have Dovilė Zdanevičienė, which is head of the Climate Change Management Policy Group at the Ministry of the Energy of the Republic of Lithuania. We also do have a guest from Denmark. It's Dr. Per Møller, which is the head of Symbiosis Center Denmark, and he will tell more about the center, but it's like they are trying to identify cases of industrial symbiosis, which helps to use waste of one company to produce goods in another company. And they have even the oldest in Symbiosis Center example of that. Also, we have a guest from Lithuanian Biotechnology Association, Tomas Andriauskas, which is the vice president of this association. Also, he is a founding partner of Setimet. This company is researching, developing, and manufacturing psychocannabidiol-based medical, nutritional, and cosmetic products. And we also have a representative of auga, it's correctly. So this is Elina Baranauskienė. She is Director of Business Development and Innovation Department, and this group is one of the largest groups of companies in the Baltic region managing agriculture companies and implementing this integrated social and environment sustainable business model, and Elina will tell more about it. So basically, I would like to start probably from the issues, environment issues, climate change, and how agriculture sector is affected. What are the main factors of these driving this pollution and climate change? What are the policies in the EU level, in maybe in our Baltic region or Lithuania? So I will ask then Zigmas Medingis to comment.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's my part, it's easiest perhaps, but climate is not the easiest part, of course. Concerning the requirements or obligations which are taken by European Union, for everybody is already perhaps clear that it's for Lithuania 9% to reduction of greenhouse gas emission until 2030 is not a very big task, but it could help to cope with the war of climate change. I would say for survival, especially agriculture is the most sensible for the climate change. And if we are not stop it or mitigate it, it will cause a lot of problems for agriculture, first of all. When we speak in terms of obligations in our policy, now the coordinator of the integrated plan for energy and climate action, Ministry of Energy and Environment, preparing the measures for the agriculture, for the mitigating of greenhouse gases, and measures for the adoption to the consequences which already appears in terms of climate change. And we believe that it should be complex or systemic point of view when we're looking at all the measures included in this plan. And first of all, as I have said in the speech of the Greta Thunberg, that we have to stop finance the issues which are harmful for nature, especially the resources which are not renewable. I mean, fossil resources which used in agriculture should be stopped to be financed, but it's very big political issue, and it seems not very easy to take it. Other things which are foreseen in our action plan is more related to the stimulation through the investment support, through the information, through the education of the farmers. And we hope that we will be able, taking on board all these measures, to reach the task of 9% greenhouse gas emission reduction. If I'm not mistaken, I answered your question, or I have to speak about opportunities something or later?
Yeah, so maybe you can elaborate a bit, like what are the obstacles? Like it's a political issue, like there is no strength to make decisions, or like also resistance from agriculture, community, farmers. So what are the like these barriers for moving forward and maybe to achieving tangible results quicker?
Thank you. The main obstacle or challenge is to find a political will to overcome the resistance of some interest groups which are feeling quite comfortable currently because of the long period subsidy system to which they adopted themselves, and they think if something happens, always will government will provide some subsidies which will let them go over these consequences. We have to, I believe that together with other ministries and government level, and taking on board their especially science people, to explaining for society that it's necessary to be together in order to change thinking of the production methods, which should be sustainable and and stop to support any fossil things which are implied in the production systems. Only this way is to go even more than 9% and go to the direction which is foreseen already in European countries until 2050 to have a zero or neutral carbon economy. And I hope that agriculture, our agriculture, could be able to adopt to these conditions and be lively in a long term if we will take necessary steps currently. We have no time to wait anymore. Thank you.
Yes, and just in your opinion, as an expert, like these targets that you negotiate in Brussels as the ministry among other EU ministries, you think they are ambitious enough? Or you would see as that there could be more commitment?
If you see the problems which are caused by climate change, I strongly believe we are not ambitious enough. And the Greta and the journalist of The Guardian, George, was telling truth. We are not ambitious, we're just pretending that we are ambitious. In general, we have to do much more because the consequences of climate change is very damaging, very harmful. For example, in Lithuania, we're losing every year at least 1 billion euros because of the air pollution, and we should pay, everyone should pay this money in order to recover your health. Why not to invest this money to the things which are not polluting? When we speak about European Union, we spend a year 200 billions for the same reason. I prefer to pay this money for investments which are not polluting. And taking into account that climate change causing heavy rains, storms and so on, they also damaging our environment, our buildings, our production capacities, which also need to recover every time. Take it into account, it's additional billions of euros. Accumulating all these expenditures we already have, it's much cheaper to invest in the non-polluting technologies, even in agriculture, instead to spend money for nothing. Because of that, I think we are not ambitious enough. Thank you.
Okay, and then we will come back maybe on the organic agriculture because we have an example, but also now to shift to energy sector. And I believe that Zigmas mentioned that they are a biggest pollution. So like polluter, maybe Dovile will have another take on that. What are the share and importance of energy sector in the climate change mitigation, and what are the policy measures there?
Yes, thank you very much. From the energy perspective, let me inform you that last year the Parliament adopted new strategy, energy strategy, that sets very high and ambitious goals in the energy sector, like renewables, energy efficiency, and so on. And what does it mean? It means that in 2030 we will be much greener in energy, in electricity sector, and also heating sector, and what is very related to this topic today, transport sector. And the strategy's main idea is that we should shift, for example, agriculture waste and biogas as a product to the transport. We have already resources for the electricity. We have wind, solar. We don't need biogas for electricity or heating, but we are very, very short of clean fuel in transport. And as a follow-up for the strategy, we have started new discussions about new alternative fuel in transport law that would set the whole scheme how to use green fuel, alternative green fuel, for example, biomethane in transport. We are willing as a ministry to be the to take the flag and to bring this law into the parliament next year. It will set a system for producing biomethane to use for the transport. What we need at the moment is capacities to produce it. We don't have any biomethane producers, as we know. We need infrastructure for filling stations and so on, and we also need users' part to have vehicles to use this biomethane. There are a lot of work to do in this field. We just started, we made a concept of the law. We have started discussing mostly with the companies like biogas companies and also car owners, bus parks, and so on. And what would be the main challenge for us would be to get the cooperation of all society to be willing to have this transport like that in their daily lives, to bring all governmental institutions, because this question of clean transport of biofuels touches also Ministry of Agriculture, Ministry of Environment as the greenhouse gases emissions, and also Ministry of Finance touching us with the tax policy. And there are a lot of associations, a lot of companies, agriculture companies, also business developers, and variety of players in this field. So that would be the challenge, and I think also an opportunity for them to speak up, to do some changes. And from the ministry, I just want to say that we are very, very open. We can, I don't know, arrange meetings if any companies or academia groups would like to talk about this question. We are really welcome to visit us. So.
And before the discussion, we talked with Per about the Danish experience, and what was mentioned that it's very challenging to bring different sectors, like they work more with industry, and the agriculture is a separate sphere, separate community, and these connections between ministries in this bioeconomy development topic. How you see like this is working, or whether how this model could be this coordination of these issues in climate change and in bioeconomy development. Maybe Zigmas could.
Thank you, Victoria. Virginia, concerning the fuel fossil resources, not only the energy ministry is responsible and transport ministry, but we too, because every who are using in production fossil resources like chemical fertilizers, for example, pesticides, fuel which are fossil, all should be included as a fossil things which cannot be subsidized, but they should be under taxation. Only it could help us to implement the not polluting technologies is the main thing which I would like to stress there. When we speak about the cooperation between ministries, I have heard from a colleague from Germany who tell that we have to have common vision. I believe that we have. I wish to believe that we have, but it's not clear if we really have, because when we speak about tasks which we have to reach, it's clear. But when for us as experts are given the responsibility to find the measures to fulfill this task, there we have a quite big challenge, because the politicians are not letting us to do it, which necessary, taking into account what the research people was telling us to do. And there is a main obstacle for fulfilling the vision of the climate mitigation. I believe that we could go over this one day, and this conference is helping us to cooperate more closely, I believe. Thank you.
Yes, and not going far from the topic of energy, now it's a commercial break, actually. We do have like a project already in cooperation with the Ministry of Energy, and in cooperation with other ministries, agencies, universities, business associations in the Baltic Sea region and 8 countries in Baltic, Scandinavia, Poland, and Germany. And we're working on identifying good practice, sustainable bioenergy, and side stream circular bioeconomy models. And to prepare them that actors in regions and locally can implement those. And we started in January 2019 and already produced a report on bioenergy market outlook and future trends. It was conducted analysis by the Norwegian University of Life Sciences, led by Professor Erik Tromberg. And basically what we see that in our region, we see that biomass use for the energy purposes has grown in the last decade about 40%. And we see here like a very large increase in biogas production is like increased twice. And we see that the countries within our region are quite different, and some adopted already, like the Nordics, like municipal waste usage for energy, and in the Baltics, other countries, we see that it's could be an opportunity here. And also we see there was a modeling based on the population projections, fossil fuel cost projections, and some opportunities was identified in the region that we could really do something in the heating and cooling sector by using this waste and agriculture residues. At least it's an opinion of researchers that conducted. And this analysis shows how complex is this bioeconomy development strategic planning, because, for instance, in electricity, biomass is not a very important raw material, but if we reduce biomass and don't supply in heat and cooling, for instance, then people will start to use electric boilers and heat pumps which use electricity, and it will have an influence. And there is a competing uses like wood chips and biogas, bio-oil, and also depending on prices and actually the fossil prices, the market also has a strong influence on how this bioeconomy and bioenergy here in particular sector will unfold. And maybe I see Zigmas very interested to maybe have a comment here. So basically, just to show, to raise your curiosity about this project and to show how complex this planning could be. And now talking about, as we touched, energy sector, and we do have a guest from Denmark, which works with identifying cases for this industrial symbiosis, and it's, I believe, not only in Denmark, but also beyond in other Nordic countries. And they do have the oldest, at least it was claimed, that is also the Kalundborg symbiosis, which is a partnership between 9 public and private companies. So maybe Per can explain the concept, the benefits, and actually, what is more important, what are the challenges that we could discuss also, how to address them.
Okay, how long do we have? I mean, it's a big topic, and you can approach it from several sides. But just to get you on the same level, I should maybe spend a few words on explaining who we are and how we operate, and what we gain from that. So, referring to the illustration on the screen, what you see is the Kalundborg Symbiosis Partnership. And it's really, as stated, a partnership between public-private partners also engaging in knowledge institutions. So it's this triple helix. Now we're actually also working with social responsible economy and businesses also to bring that fourth leg in. But what we facilitate, and we are a knowledge center within industrial symbiosis, so we facilitate this way of forming partnership and this way of actually making smart green business based on waste streams from industry, primarily. So we try to be the facilitator in making these partners stick to their promises and hang on to their partnership for a long-term relationship, to meet 3 to 4 times a year and discuss challenges, opportunities, and to exploit new green business models. So that's what we try to do, first of all, locally. And it's because this is, of course, a long story going back, and it's a culture that has been created over many years, and it grew organically. So it's not been designed by any big thinker. It just came to town, basically, and stayed there. And what we try to do now is build capacity within, of course, but also beyond the municipality and beyond the Danish borders. And we do that in many ways, also in the Nordic countries. But it's really looking at the resource flows within industries and how they can benefit by developing green business models together, public and private partners. So that's just a shorter version of it, and I think we need to just go into more specific questions if we should allow for everybody to say something.
So basically, like, it's very interesting. What are the roles? For instance, the public part. What are their role in this partnership? The business. What kind of business? Because we talked a bit before the discussion. It's very. We do have time for that. Really, we do have, because it's very interesting and. What kind of products you produce, how this interconnection works, so it's...
Is it okay if I stand up? It's a bit... Thank you. Well, basically, then I need to point on the screen, because that may give sense to you then. Well, this is just showing some of the 24, 25 waste streams that are currently being exploited, and every line represents a symbiosis project. That's really a green business model. You can always discuss how green it is. That's a different discussion. But this is a bilateral agreement between 2 private or private-public partners. And it's also a flow of information, confidentiality, data, and partnership. So this is how it's set up. I mean, you do business as usual, not only private-private, but also public-private, and you of course try to engage with newest technology and create innovation. You also sometimes have a result of creating new export markets, because you introduce innovation into this loop where you have to look at waste as a potential resource and creating value from that. So the public partners act at the various levels, because I am public, because I'm head of Symbiosis Center, which is really part of the development department in the Kalundborg municipality. But we are head of this Symbiosis Center, this private association. So we are the facilitator of this partnership as such. But of course, the practitioners are the important players. And that's all actually engaged in this, public and private, on universities, knowledge institutions and technology providers. So we have another public entity, and that's really the municipality. It's publicly owned, but it's a private company. And they are maybe not the heart, but a very important heart, part of the organ in this organism, because they're responsible for distribution of drinking water, upcycling of surface water to drinking water quality. They're producing heat from treated wastewater, and they, of course, treating wastewater. So they are active in creating value, but distributing resources within the local society and ensuring that the utilities are in order. But apart from that, they are engaging in specific projects where industries are creating additional infrastructure and green business models. And then we have a waste handling public entity, Argo, which is really a collaboration of 9 municipalities looking at bio-waste, also utilizing that. But apart from that, it's really these 6 private partners that have engaged in various bilateral agreements. Sometimes it's two companies doing a smart green business model, or sometimes it's all of them. So that's really how it's organized, and it's just business as usual. We facilitate that they meet. We sometimes introduce technologies, and then what they go back and look at business as usual, and that's where we have this principle of an arm length, respecting that when they see a business opportunity, they go back and do business as usual. But you can do it in a sustainable way, and I think this is how you're gonna run your business in the future, not only in Kalundborg. And we have many other good examples. If you do business with this kind of mindset, I mean, your business will survive, it will develop, and it will grow. If you do business as usual, I mean, then you will not last long. So I think we can twist it as a threat, or we can twist it towards this is really opening up for opportunities. If you work looking at your production and looking at waste as a resource. So it's a secondary resource that you should exploit, and it's just simply smart business. And that's where you need all stakeholders involved. So it's really a matter of partnership, working together. You can do a lot in your own company, do internal optimization, but if you want to make really big steps, you need to do it in partnerships. And that takes dedication and long-term agreements and innovation. And I think that's part of the main success around this partnership that I present to you today.
Usually these partnerships, so it takes trust and cooperation spirit to enter in these partnerships, but also it requires some large infrastructure investments, or it's something smart, organized. What are the key things that you have to, key investments here? It's more into long-term commitments on supply of materials, or it's more the infrastructure investment?
I mean, it varies, but in general, I would say it takes a fairly short payback time, and it's rather big investments. So that also leads me to conclude that we have a lot of projects that has not been realized yet due to, too poor economics. I see a change now, so don't mistake me on this, but they do this for business. This means that you can actually do business even though it's green. Now the green, the sustainability, and the branding becomes even more interesting and of value. So we see a change in the businesses, that they are willing to go further, with a slower payback time. So there's a change, but still it's pretty big investments, and still they would like to keep the payback time within 2 or 3 years, right? So that's a challenge, but But I mean, bigger companies with larger resources and capabilities are, of course, more likely to go into this. But we see that even SMEs now are actually being pulled into this to be part in this in these new, especially innovative solutions where they have maybe not the waste streams, but the technologies or the know-how or the new ideas, innovation, to actually support this transition to upcycle things instead of just burning it.
These industrial symbiosis, there is some public like fund support for that, or it's more like this private interest driven, that business?
It's been funded through projects through the region. Actually, the center now is no longer funded from the region, but was initially as a regional center, now a national center. And currently we are 90% funded by via external money. So that would be national funds, but also, I mean, project funds or Horizon 2020 or Interreg funding. But I mean, a new structure is coming up now that I can not tell you all about, all details, because some is confidential, but we are looking at restructuring to be able to actually move in and do not only facilitation, but actually implement more, be a direct partner as this association in big projects in not only Europe, but also globally, to not copy paste, but do a system export and try to help push this development in big countries with a lot of industry, because that's where we can do a big difference. And we are working in the Nordic countries and the Baltic countries specifically, I would say, but I'm going to Taiwan in 2 weeks, where they are also quite eager to do similar things, and Washington State is in contact with us, and Australia is also active. And I just need to mention that we are definitely not the only ones doing this. A lot of successful stories are out there. They're just not being told in the same way, or forgotten, or so communication is very important. We need to meet and discuss, because we're working within the same mindset. So we should build capacity on what is already existing, and that's what we try to do with the limited resources we have. So a lot of really good similar approaches and partnerships are available. We just need to tell the good stories and the good cases to similar stakeholders, so industry and public entities, for them to understand that yes, this is possible, and it's just working together like we normally do.
Thank you, Per. And now we do have also complex model only in one company. And this is AUGA scheme of their farming, sustainable farming model, and it shows how it integrates different production segments and how they interrelated, and maybe the representative could elaborate on that.
Thank you, Virginia. When you look at it, it actually is not as complex, because it all makes sense. And that's really what circular economy, the change and the policy that we're trying to show and be example of is that it's all reasonable and it all makes sense. So when you look at the AUGA business model, and that's our future vision, that we want to be closed loop, sustainable, organic, long-term, zero waste company. And some of the aspects of business we already have functioning and active. Some of them are still in the R&D stage. So while I'll be taking you through the scheme that is on the screen, I'll be outlining some of the operations that are existing, and you could come and see for yourselves how they work. All were very welcome, and some of them are in the R&D stage. So it all starts with the crop growing, and we promote 7-year crop rotation, interchanging different cultures from pulses to wheat to barley and other, which gives soil a higher level of fertility. And that's really how nature is set, basically to sustain and interchange so it lasts longer. These crop elements are going into the feed in our farms. So we do dairy farming and we do poultry farming. And the manure that we receive from our animals and livestock is feedback then into the crop growing as organic fertilizer, as much as compost for mushroom growing, as much as for our R&D purposes, for the extraction of biofuels that we are working on to fuel our biofuel tractors. That is also a project of ours and is to be tested first quarter next year. When we look at the mushrooms, then these mushrooms are again feeding into the crop growing, and there we have a fully closed loop business model there. Some of the relations came out as naturals, some of them we come across as best practices in some of the global company examples. But I think the bottom line that we really want to say is that it's kind of a social contract that consumers should expect of the companies and service providers to provide for. And then there is a lot of technology that is available already now that just needs to be adaptation. Some of the technology costs more, some of it less, but it all boils down to the fact that we need to be determined that we want to produce clean food and we want to provide it to our consumers, and our consumers need to demand for it.
When we look at the company and it's successful in this innovation and finds the market for higher value, but then also higher price products, you export quite a lot. Like organic agriculture is important in this climate change action because there was an attempt to include food in eco-label, and quite a comprehensive study was did for the food with like all life cycle of the food products, and the researchers concluded that in food case, it's like the most footprint and environmental effects relies on the production and like the transport, packaging, and also it's like not counts that much. And when we talk about this bioeconomy development strategies, do you see that more conventional farmers could transit to that model? And then we'll ask Zigmas that question, because at least I heard, don't saw a document, but Estonians, at least in the corridors of the minister, talks about fully organic, like all the country organic concept, and they achieve something in education, for instance, quite ambitious, so maybe they will pull out on this one. So how you see that in countrywide this organic could expand, and what would be the factors that could encourage for this transition?
Well, technically speaking, we are setting a good example in terms of countrywide because we're running 38,000 hectares and it's set up all throughout Lithuania. And we're really trying to communicate it to our neighbors, to our suppliers, that this is a good model. It took us some time because, as we all know, organic certification takes 3 years long. But the factors that could help farmers settle down on this road and take the challenge upon are simple, because the productivity rate of the soil is higher when you're doing it sustainable. It's, intangible results. Then the investment that you need, some of that is available via policy schemes or financial aid measures available. If we look at the know-how, know-how is also available at university as yours and other institutions. So things are there to change, to be taken, but the change is also related to mentality. And the mentality aspect needs to be addressed probably as a community element and again as a demand of the market. I know that sometimes we are looking upon Estonians with little envy that they are the first in something. I really think that with our agricultural traditions and the love for nature, we could be that example if we all pushing this together on every single layer.
And for instance, as we talk about, and you talk about the innovation, and it could be related like this technologies also could relate to biotechnologies, and also there is a field of genetically modified organisms. What is your position of application of that in organics? I know that community are very resistant and do not support it, and you are open-minded, innovative. What do you think about GMO?
So we try to explore every avenue that would feed in back to our business model. We never say no to things, but we test them 3 times before we make that decision.
Zigmas would comment on organic agriculture prospects in Lithuania. What are like the share of organic is good. Whether we should encourage further that. What on the prospects of that?
Thank you. Concerning the organic production, it could be ecological, but not organic. Your ways, I like it, because it's pretty good fits to the bioeconomy principles and circular economy principles. And of course, it's organic, because you have circulating all the materials inside in order to produce another products. When you speak in terms of large terms of organic production, our way, in Lithuania way, not all organic production, which is usually have in mind in European Union, we are producing. For example, if you growing the cereals in sand and exporting all the cereals out of Lithuania, it's nothing too organic, because you're just destroying the soil. But you have to every time to enrich the soil, if you wish to be as a real organic farm. But they are not using chemicals. It is not enough. And I believe that in our policy will be more stress, given stress for the real organic production as we have the AUGA group. Because we have good examples, and it shows that it is economically feasible. In our plan of integration, in the integrated plan of energy and climate change, we also foreseen the development of organic farm production, because it's giving the opportunity for our farmers to be alive for long term. They are working not for the current day, but for the future too. They are not destroying biodiversity, which is very important for agriculture. The main thing which lets agriculture be alive, because we are putting a lot of efforts on the stimulation of organic production. Thanks.
Of course, from the Per speech on this cooperation, we talk about the big company where it's integrated and they have resources available, and in our agriculture is like low cooperation level, so there could be also an obstacle for the uptake of these innovative technologies, because it also requires investment and the complex model of production. And now, we do have this agriculture, energy sectors, and in bioeconomy development, we also have other bio-based products like textiles, cosmetics, and from very, we also talk about how to feed planet, but that is a new element in this European bioeconomy strategy to switch to the greener production. And here we have a representative of Biotechnology Association, and basically this sector provides knowledge and R&D needed for the various and even unexpected applications of biomass for production of products as sneakers from pineapples and so on. So maybe Thomas could present Lithuanian Biotechnology Association, its members, what they're doing, what are directions, and what is the factors that could, or changes that could be introduced that we could expand our biotechnology, this high value added sector in Lithuania, and how to connect with the agriculture and other sectors to apply this knowledge.
Yes, thank you. Bio-based, if we look in the broad perspective, the bio-based economy in Lithuania accounts probably around 20% of GDP, while biotechnology, which is a much narrower area, it's probably 1/10 of that, so it counts a little bit above 2% of Lithuanian GDP. But if we look regionally, Lithuania is definitely the regional leader in biotech. We have among our members, we have also large companies like Thermo Fisher Scientific or Amylina, which is part of Rocket Group. Also small companies and universities, including Vytautas Magnus University as well, our recent member. From an academic perspective, I must say that there's definitely a very well-established academia and academic approach towards the sector, because we have 6 universities, 19 academic programs, which are related to biotechnology sector in one other way, and each year supplying to the market, so to say, 1,500 students, out of which 300 master's degrees. So it's a pretty well established infrastructure or ecosystem to provide the knowledge and the possible people who work in the industry. And we are very happy that this number grows, and the share of biotechnology in Lithuanian GDP is also growing. But if we look from the bioeconomy perspective, as I said, biotechnology is just a tiny part. There's the energy part, there's agriculture, and so on. And from bioeconomic perspective, as we heard, there's a vision. Probably where we have to go. But the problem, there's no clear strategy and no clear measures in place which would allow this vision to happen. And I understand this is a long process. Because you cannot, because of all these climate change issues, you cannot all of a sudden, change the policy and, for example, close the factories like BASF or Bayer in Germany, because it will, hundreds of thousands or millions of people will lose jobs. So I think it's a long process to implement, and biotechnology, I think, here can play a very important role because of technology and technology deployment and technology implementation in the industry. Just to define who doesn't know, that biotech can be divided into 3 main categories. So so-called a white biotech, which is an industrial biotech. The red biotech, which is a medicinal or medical biotech. Then we have a green biotech, which is agrobiotech, and the blue biotech, which is an aqua or water-related biotech. So in our association, we have 90 members representing all four of these biotech branches, so to say. So that's very briefly.
Also, in your association is more like this from pharmaceuticals, this very high-end members, and your association is also involved in our project. And then we talk on agriculture, for instance, biomass. And there is very tempting how to move farmers up through the this biomass value pyramid, which is like energy, then food, and other like cosmetics, pharmaceuticals. But it's very difficult because they do have biomass, but the knowledge is everything to make these high value products. So how you see this cooperation aspects with this and traditional maybe industry to them, to consult them and transfer, for instance with agriculture links, is there a cooperation there for the shifting?
There is a certain level of cooperation, definitely, but definitely not enough. And I think the good example, the Danish example that was shown here, I think it's very important, this public-private partnership. Because the private, if you look, I mean, these municipal companies, for example, that are large players in the value chain because they supply energy. Typically, they are natural monopolies supplying energy or supplying or treating the water. So it's quite an important part. And I think we definitely lack in the country. We lack the strategies which will enable this type of cooperation. Strategies that will deploy the certain, support mechanism to do that, including the financial as well. Because as it was mentioned, it's very costly to do this kind of model. You need investment. And if you take one sector out of the context, the agri sector, for example, probably the agri sector alone will not be able to kind of create this kind of model, this kind of business model. You need much more involvement from the other sectors, and typically this bottom up doesn't work, or unless there's a very clear economic benefit. But typically it should in our environments it should rather be kind of top-down approach through the strategies, through the incentive schemes to allow this to happen.
Yes, and I would like to ask maybe some from auditorium. Some participants has some questions of presented ideas on business models. Yes, and I will take you.
Hi, I'm the Estonian here. I'm Kaur Sarv from Scania Baltics, and the reason why I came here is that I see a big potential in Lithuanian bioeconomy, because Scania has both the trucks and buses for biogas. And when quite often people are comparing how many gas stations there are in Estonia, Latvia and Lithuania, then Estonia has 17, Latvia 1, and Lithuania around 9 or 10. But when we look into biogas stations close to farms, then Estonia has only 2. And Latvia is the luckiest, they have almost 55, and Lithuania around 20. So I would like to encourage you that clean this biogas into biomethane, and you have right away the trucks, not only from Scania, but also from Volvo and Iveco and others. And another thing that when we think that maybe there's not enough small cars, actually heavy cars are more important. Small cars will transform into electricity, and that's a good thing. But big cars, when you want to transform them into electricity, then you need batteries which weigh 7 tons. And for these 7 tons, you can get only almost 13 small electric cars. And when in a small car these batteries last 10 years, in a big car these last less than 2 years. So this is the reason why heavy-duty buses, trucks or even tractors should be more on gas and especially biogas. In Estonia, they are starting to understand that this will give you more skilled jobs at countryside also, that there will be engineers actually who understand how the process works and then who can contribute to this, like the sustainability example was from the farms, that you have dairy and others. So I would like you kind of to think positively about Lithuanian own gas, and we have the vehicles, and please start to use them. Thank you.
Maybe a remark from like Dovilė, or like how we look in the context and.
Yeah, very good wishes from you, and we have already met with this Scania, and I think they visited few ministries, and it was good, I think, information that they provided, and we are very happy to know their practices and their vision. Yeah.
And maybe other remarks? Yes, one moment. Please represent yourself.
Yeah, hello. Good afternoon. I am Dr. Ketaki Bapat, coming from India and working as senior scientist and principal scientific advisor to Government of India. I would like to share some of the things how, as we were hearing that for any policy support or any funding support for government is required to take some risk-taking factors or any innovation to take forward. So in India, I just wanted to share our office contribution, where we suffer with rice stubble is there and stubble is burnt, and because of that pollution and all other climatic changes happen. To stop that thing, there is a biocoal is a technology we can make out of it, and which is we are taking from Sweden, which is established plants are there, and to support those kind of a thing, we have very good initiative, and we have supported and we have funded the research kind of a project which was costing quite a bit, but later on seeing the positivity of the technology, the same thing with the thermal power plant is adjacent to that, so it is a win-win situation for that. So here even though the policy was not there, our office is there for propagating the S&T technologies and taking the risk factor. So we have done this kind of a thing. So I think it is very much needed for other countries also to take lead. Thank you.
Thank you for your remark. And then, or maybe someone needs to follow up, or other questions? Other questions? Remarks? Yes, please.
David Rizzo from France. I'm coming back to the example of Symbiosis. Why this actor need a facilitator?
Well, most of them do, but it's because with any business, I mean, you run your business as you run your business. I mean, you're so focused on producing, and it really takes a culture shift. And if the CEO is exchanged so and so often, I mean, you can still have it in the workforce, but it's really the CEO that is taking the decision. We have a relatively flat structure in Denmark, but you don't have it everywhere. So still, I mean, you need to keep reminding them they should also work with innovative ways of developing their business, and remember that there's also good money to earn on doing green business models. So we are not, I mean, we are far in our mindset in Denmark also, but still we need to remind each other, and especially the big industries, that they should still revisit some of the green business models and revisit some of the new technologies, because they may have a nice business model that is based on circular economy, so symbiosis, but so many things happen over time, and these years with technologies, that just a simple revisit and recombination of technologies could change a business to become an even better business, also for the environment and also for the export market and the branding. So it's just because we are so busy. I mean, we're living in a busy world, fast food and everything, and we lack time to reflect and revisit how how we do our business. So if we do business as usual, we will not develop, and that's not good for, definitely not good for the climate.
Just wanted to additionally ask, your center interacts with the businesses, but how much, at what extent you interact with, for instance, not Kalundborg, but other regions and public authorities? Because we in Lithuania, we had a process of these regional strategies, and quite many identified bioeconomy as one of them. But when we interact with these regions, we see that they lack of competence, and they don't know that it's a perspective topic, but they don't know what actions should they take. So how many of your work is dedicated to this consulting and awareness raising among the public authorities?
Yeah, I need to just go back and just mention our structure. We are a public entity. We are 7 to 8 people working on this to facilitate this. But the practitioners are out there. That's really the industry. So they are implementing this. We are not allowed to implement. We're not allowed to educate because we're a public entity and we will be competing. That's why we need to restructure. Saying that, we're still trying to share our knowledge and build capacity within Denmark, but maybe we have recently, or the past years, maybe had too much focus on doing it abroad. So we need to do more at home, but still we're trying with the limited resources we have. So it's money. It's being a public entity, getting taxpayers' money from Kalundborg, this municipality. We cannot argue to our politicians that we go out and save the world trying to do this. So we need to do that through projects where we do get funding externally to actually go in, and via the projects like Interreg, Horizon 2020, for instance, we try to build capacity, share knowledge, but also take something back. So what we need is national programs, maybe a European program that will allow regional hubs via a one-point entry, whatever, and we're trying to do that in the Nordic region right now, to actually build on capacity that we already have, and we are happy to be part of that task force, but only part of it because it takes so many different skills. It's really cross-sectoral, and across many different competences that we need to set up this task force to actually facilitate and help implement these solutions. They are out there, and we need to communicate the good cases that are not only realized in Kalundborg, but many other places. So we need to communicate these things, and we need to organize ourselves, and then of course be willing to go into dedicated partnerships. And people are not stupid. People know a lot, but they just need to sit down, spend time together, and dedicate themselves into partnerships, cross-country also. So we are not that far. It's really refocusing and putting our resources and efforts into partnerships, right?
Yes, and if there will not be any further question for the audience, maybe we can summarize by highlighting the most important drivers and key factors of success that could help to create more sustainable, more prosperous and economically, socially bioeconomy. So maybe just what you consider the most important, what should be changed, whether from the policy, from the consumer side, knowledge transfer, what would be the most important thing? So maybe from... Okay.
Thank you. From my point of view, the most important is to educate society. The best driver of the sustainable products. But they have to be well informed about production systems which in place and what benefits they could get if we switch our production to another which are sustainable. But sometimes it's not very convenient. And the truths are not very nice. When we acknowledge that we do not, as we was expected to do, it's not easy to say I was wrong, I made a mistake. In our case, I believe that if we taking on board the scientists, which are preparing engineers and agronomes, will educate properly what is sustainable production in agriculture, they will help us as a ministry to spread the information about the methods which could be in place in order to cope with the climate change, introduce bioeconomy, and everybody will be happy. And for us as a policy making or formation people, it will be much easier to have in place the necessary measures which are effective and helpful. Thank you.
We like to state, whenever we have groups visiting us in Kalundborg, and that's quite a bit, that technology makes it possible, but people make it happen. And I think, just referring again, you heard me say partnership many times. I think that's really the thing that we need. We need to meet, communicate, and we need to dedicate ourselves into partnerships to actually make this happen. And I think twist it, not to make the Greta story, to make it too negative, but look at there's so many great opportunities in actually facing these challenges. I mean, if we understand to go towards this in partnership, looking at the opportunities this will give us to do this transition, it will create so many good green jobs. It will create a sustainable future, and there's so many opportunities out there for everybody. And especially when we talk industrial symbiosis, we are looking at local regional solutions. So there's no one going to win the battle of industrial symbiosis or circular economy, because it's in your home, it's in your local area where you will create resilience. And that's for everybody to enjoy. So there's great opportunities out there.
Coming from perspective of organic and organic food and technology company, I think the most important part is a social contract of an organic food company and the end consumer. And that social contract should consist of the value set that is not proclaimed. So everybody says they want to be sustainable, everyone says they want to eat organic, but the value set that is exemplified by behavior. And when we would see that consumers would start demanding the food companies to be organic, they will look at the labels and prefer the product that is organic and clean, and they will make that end goal of buying that product as opposed to other. That will be the natural selection.
And from my experience and opinion, I will repeat myself, cooperation is very important, because in this legislative policy-making process, sometimes in the ministries, we don't know so much as, you know, in the company, how does it work, what is the practice. And if we want to make the state intervention to somehow motivate companies to do something, it's very good to hear their barriers, obstacles, and what will be the, you know, carrot for them to change this view. And in this way, policy can be effective, I think.
Yeah, I think policymakers have to do what they have to do. As I mentioned, in Lithuania, bio-based economies are making up to 20% of the GDP. I think it's a huge opportunity, because Lithuania doesn't have any fossil material, no fossil fuels. So I think it can easily be 60 maybe, or 70 or 80% of GDP. So it's a huge opportunity, and somebody has to understand that. Now, from our perspective, since we're more like a science-related sector, it's extremely important that we have an ability to deploy new technologies, because it's definitely a very, very important success factor in this process. And in our association, we are now trying to figure out and maybe create some kind of framework that would enable the new companies to deploy new technologies and try to commercialize these new technologies, because we don't think it's a good strategy to rely on the well-established companies. It's important. These companies are very important in the process, But in our understanding, it's much more important to grow the pie. And in this process, it's extremely important that we have these new companies coming into the market, able to commercialize these technologies. So that's what we're focused now. It's of course a tiny part of the whole process, but I think it's a very important part.
Yes, and I believe as our title is Bioeconomy Development Strategies, we didn't develop the sectorial like animal production, crop production, energy, and so on, but we developed some horizontal principles here, and we talk about the public engagement. Yes, the consumer engagement and social contract, as very nice put it. And we talk about also about interconnection between different sectors, institutions, and cooperation. And we talk about bringing new people, new startups, new minds, and enthusiasm into this sector. So I believe three horizontal, nice principles that we can end this discussion. So thank you very much for the speakers for sharing their experience, expertise, and thank you for the audience. Thank you.
Start the second panel of our Rural Development Conference, and I would like to invite the debaters. Carlos, could you sit somewhere? And of course, some of you, or you can sit together with us if you would like to join our discussion and to be more close with us. So we are starting with how social innovations can help rural areas to become smarter. And you see that in the agenda we have two presenters or two key speakers, as we divided this topic to the two main innovations, like social business and local food systems or regional food systems. It is up to us, yeah, because the space is big and we can call differently, depends from the level. And my suggestion is to start with a small introduction with all participants and just some words about yourself, why we are here, yeah, what experience we have. And after that, we will move to the question how to develop regional food systems in the context of bioeconomy. And Tali has a presentation, small, yeah. And after we will discuss and we have connection with Brussels, and you see that we don't have here two debaters. It is Mindaugas Maciulevičius, who now in the Brussels, and he looking on us from the distance. After that, I think Arūnas Svitojus, he will join us to the discussion. So my suggestion is to start with a small introduction about ourselves. Is it okay? Okay? Shall we start?
Thank you. My name is Tālis Tisenkops. I'm from Latvia, from Baltic Studies Center, a small research institute. I'm sociologist by education, and we are doing some EU and some national projects on food systems, on agricultural innovation, also on rural-urban linkages.
Hi, I'm Giedrė Kveskienė. I'm from Vytautas Magnus Education Academy, and in same time I am president of big NGO Confederation for Children, which join more than 70 different NGO who working in countryside and of course in big cities. And here, maybe because of this, together with my husband Vitas, we write a monograph about social partnership for innovation. 10 years, we are looking how to empowerment schools and NGOs that they become leaders of social business and social innovation.
Hi, my name is Jurgita Ribinskaitė-Glacer. I am Lithuanian, but represent international organization Reach for Change. We are supporting social innovators, social entrepreneurs who are working in the field of children's rights. We're giving them small grants, so sometimes not small, and also incubator support. So we are really also working quite a lot in the building ecosystem in Lithuania, so the social entrepreneurship innovation would become more mainstream than it is now.
Hello, I am Dalia Mikoliūnaitė. I am from a small independent theater group. We work and create for, strange place in here, people from theater sphere. 20 years we work for children, for kids with educational and artistic programs and different projects. And now we want to do our biggest step to join all projects and to do social business in the frame of educate the society and start from kids, and we are in incubator of Reach for Change for social business. Drąsių kalvė, we have the title.
That's very nice to have some theater and acting and arts in the round. It might open up discussions. My name is Karl-Heinz Knickel. I'm engaged mainly in European funded research programs for almost 30 years now, which also means I have become a bit of a globetrotter. Lived a couple of years in Portugal, and now we ended up in Tuscany. And it's always research related and always working closely with local research colleagues and partners and trying to learn as much as possible along the way. Otherwise, I have an agricultural background and then a lot on innovation processes. I think one of the first EU programs where also Thalys was involved was on innovation, looking at innovation in a different way. It's not top-down, linear process. It's more networked with all kinds of actors. Yeah.
You, and we have one more participant, and it is our social innovation. It is graphical visual thinking, and we have Aušrinė Balkaitytė, sorry, Aušrinė, and she will draw what we speak, she will draw, and after that we can look what happens and what we have said. Yeah, I am Vilma Atkočiūnienė, I am from Vytautas Magnus University, and my special interest it is development of rural social infrastructure. In the same time, I'm working in development of local food systems. So I'm really happy that you join us, and as you agreed, shall we start with how to develop, and we have this one of questions, how to develop regional food system in the context of bioeconomy and in the context of smart village. Yeah, we're using this word smart, smartness, sustainability, and we will try to give answer what it is, okay? Shall we start from Tali's presentation?
Yes, why not? You gave me 10 minutes, right? I will not exceed. I have prepared several slides, and Vilma, by the way, is co-author of our written paper and this presentation as well. It is based on a number of projects we have been involved in on innovation, on small-scale farming, on food security. My main question in this paper and presentation is, can we look at regional level of food systems? There are a lot of discussion about global value chains, about local short chains, but I think territoriality comes in strongly, and possibly we can do many good things with food systems on regional level. There was one project we were part of called Transmango. It's already finished project, but it came up with 6 key messages to illustrate so-called systems approach to food. And on the right you can see, or you rather cannot see, but you can distinguish a very complex picture of a food system developed by colleagues. Basically, in between there is food system activities, production, distribution, consumption, waste management. But before that, there is man-made assets, natural assets necessary for food production. There is institutional regulation around. But the system should end with some outcomes. To deliver food and nutrition security, but also to deliver environmental goods. Perhaps they do deliver also bads, and also contribute to social side of life. So those key messages resulting from this system analysis of food was that food is produced and consumed in systems, and the main outcome of food systems is food security, but should be also environmental goods and social benefits like, for example, employment and quality of life. But those systems are vulnerable due to many, many reasons. Already mentioned climate change, weather instabilities, market fluctuations, etc., etc. And those systems are framed from different perspectives, and already during the first panel meeting we saw how challenging these positions might be. For example, environmentalists claim one benefits, the producers aim at other benefits. But I think that those systems are not natural creatures, then they are man-made, and this is a matter of negotiation, how we try to put all good things in those food systems. And the question is about regional level. As I said, the global chains are a lot analyzed. Ecological, agroecological production systems have been analyzed. Also increasingly the local ones, and the domestic model is analyzed. But what about regional? Regional food systems between this squeeze of vulnerabilities and high stakes, high expectations, because we want our food systems to deliver not only food, but also health, perhaps, good nutrition, but also environmental goods. And possibly we can deal or address all those questions, in particular on the regional level. We did also, together with Vilma as well, some food system comparisons at national level. You can distinguish flags of Latvia and Lithuania. Do you distinguish? I believe yes. There are certainly similar characteristics. If we look at food, they contribute considerable share to economy both in Latvia and Lithuania. They are very open to global markets. There is strong market and power concentration in food chains. These systems still undergo strong modernization and intensification. There are bipolar farm structures, many small farms, both in Lithuania and Latvia, but also a growing segment of big farms, massive influence of industry on consumption habits. Those are not developing as good as we wished. But also the growing demand for healthy and sustainable products and revival of traditional foods, artisanal products, etc. Some differences, perhaps in Latvia we can observe more dynamism and more advancement in short supply chains and civic food initiatives. But as we heard from previous panel, there is a lot of good things like Grow Green in Lithuania as well. Based on some observations from media analysis and interviews, we felt that in Lithuania there is a strong food patriotism. There is a centralization in approach to governance, but also pride in Lithuanian quality, in Lithuanian industry. At the same time, the food habits are very much determined by that industrial food producers, and some of them are really not healthy at all. So there are also common vulnerabilities, but also some differences, and perhaps no reason to go much in detail, but we are commonly vulnerable to some losses, I think, diminished diversity and competition, that also economic interests outcompete other principles, and there are high share of household income spent on food in our countries. So there are vulnerabilities in food system. They touch upon mostly unemployed people, but also working poor, those who work on low salaries. The children are those who are exposed to insufficient food and nutrition security and quality, and the elderly. But in Lithuania, we felt more social solidarity in food assistance. It's more pronounced. Also in Latvia, there are civic organizations around food assistance, but we felt in Lithuania it's more strongly embedded in culture. Now I come to a comparison. This is the one before the last slide, I think. I'm not going much further, but we did compare two two sectors, dairy products in Pieriga, which is a capital region, and in Vilnius region, also the dairy production. So, and we tried to figure out how the regional picture of dairy production looks like, taking just one product as an example of regional food system. Some key characteristics. In Pieriga region, there is more production than consumption. In Vilnius region, there is minus production. The region itself doesn't provide enough milk which is consumed in the region. Despite that, Lithuania is a big milk producer, net exporter of milk. Obviously, milk is produced in other regions, so it's transported into the region both for the processing capacity is great there. The herds, average herds are still small in both countries, 8 cows per herd in Pieriga, 6 But then you can find big farms with hundreds and even thousands of cows. So, and by circles, you can distinguish certain subsystems in the regional dairy system. One is agro-industrial, dominated by big processing industries, bigger farms. The middlemen operate in this agro-industrial. There is import and export. The milk is transported. It's very open to global markets, I would say. I live in Pieriga region in the country, next to a big farm, and every morning, 9 o'clock, a big milk truck comes from Lithuania. There is a brand name, Pieno Žvaigždės. It collects milk from my neighbor farm and brings back to factory in Lithuania, obviously then exporting through Maxima to other countries, to Poland perhaps, processing. So the agro-industrial is very strong within the regional, and it has grown and benefited from subsidies, from technological modernization with EU monies. But there are also other, as Vilma puts it, local subsystem or proximity subsystem, where more small farms find accommodation, and where is a stronger link between committed, interested consumer and perhaps niche producer, artisanal producer, cheesemaker. So, and we felt that there is a room for small farms, but there is also room for new claims. For example, there is a much closer communication between consumer and producers, so that consumers interested in good quality milk, in specialty traditional cheeses and recipes can find negotiation with consumers. There is a place in this system also from small creameries, small-scale processing companies, and other good things. And I think that where does health come into the food system? Does the industrial component brings health? To extent, yes, but most notably, these are those subsystems of proximity, of domestic model, perhaps ecological model, existing and coexisting in regional food systems that bring health issues and environmental concerns to forefront. And there are also the very old traditional domestic model, which is connected to self-provision, many subsistence farms active still there, and also developing organic subsystem. The point is that there are different models and different subsystems within the region, and I believe they can work together, they complement each other, and they have certain strength and also perhaps weaknesses. So the question is how we can make those subsystems at regional level to work in a more coordinated way. And yes, for that reason, perhaps we need to envision and to vision the conditions and pathways to strengthening our regional food systems, to boost ethos of solidarity, induce change and coordination. This is a complex task, but we can achieve a lot working collaboratively, and looking also to beneficial urban-rural synergies through food, through sustainable food, how urban and rural gets connected. And of course, there are specific governance tools and instruments at regional level, like green food procurement, green public procurement of food for schools, public offices. There are food forums, regional forums, there are networks, there are regional labels developing, etc., etc. A whole area of innovation, where also a social innovation, which is about human relationship and relationship-based innovation, can come in, valorize local food for economic sustainability, facilitate market access, retain traditional recipes, empower farmers, encourage regional food security and sustainability. To conclude, two photos. One is from Riga, Kalnciema quarter. They started as a farmer market, became very, very popular. And this is now a multifunctional place combining food, arts, crafts, leisure, socialization in urban environment. And on the right, there is a Actually, I saw Mindaugas online, and this is, I guess, his company, or established by him. I took the picture when we did the field work, right? A mobile farmer market in Kaunas, the same farmer market concept, but it's put on wheels. But through this innovation, obviously, and an enterprise-driven innovation, they developed also a lot of good things in home production, in home processing, and also made a channel for farm products to come into the city. So that's my point. To conclude with one sentence, I think the question was how we can play around the regional food systems and combine good things in innovative ways.
Thank you. And as I said, that this innovation, mobile farmers market in Kaunas and other cities, it was implemented by the cooperative for farmers. And now we have in Brussels, and I will try to connect, with Mindaugas, and maybe he can react, Talis, on your presentation. And I hope that he. Do you see us? Yeah, but we don't have the voice.
Hello, Kaunas, Brussels calling. Bioeconomy.
Okay, can you react to Talis' presentation and how we can play in an innovative way, and how we can create the local food systems, short food supply chains, how we can develop, okay?
My reaction will be a little bit out of the sky because of the noise on the network. I was not able to follow exactly the words, but I was looking into the presentation as such. My main points on the inclusiveness, the inclusive and sustainable bioeconomy and the local food system would be as follows. First of all, the health aspect, so health of the people, health of the citizens. And we should be aiming with bioeconomy innovations, we should be aiming to get our food healthier, to strive for the healthier diets, at the same time more fresh, more nutritious. And this supply is vital for us as a society, as new society. My second point would be, of course, this is linked to the environment. It's a lot more environmentally friendly. Also, it has a clear link with climate change mitigation. There is aspect of climate adaptation. So the obvious links down there. And my third point here would be, if we are seriously promoting our local food supplies and the systems, we are also encouraging local economies. We are creating new jobs in the rural areas where they are needed all over the world. And these regions, especially the rural regions, usually they are the most disadvantaged ones. There is not so much industry, there is not so much infrastructure. So kind of food processes and food processing would be obvious to promote in order to get those good employment places for local communities, because bear in mind, not everyone are working in the farming. And if you look into community as general, part of that will be farming. Rest of the people, they have maybe to travel far distances away, or they are working locally in the governmental sector or different sector. Then I would like to very important thing for me would be the calculation of net benefit or the inclusive, sustainable bioeconomy. For example, we all know, and the target is that we are going to mitigate our climate changing gases. We are actually saying that by the year of 2050, we might be net zero emitters in the world, and there is an ambition. So our farming sector also has a lot of the different gases that it produces, and methane would be nearly the most obvious one to start stopping as soon as possible, because this is the most dangerous gas from the climate change point of view. So one way is that some of our colleagues more so-called sustainable diets, eat less meat, so it means we need less animals. I would be thinking from the different point of view, we still can eat similar, maybe a little bit less, of course, from the healthy diet point of view, but we still can eat meat. We need animals for our natural humus, but the way we have to manage our, for example, slurry from the animals would be the obvious example, biogas facilities. And you can see the big ones all over Belgium, Netherlands, different countries like that. And there is a clear bioeconomy concept down there because the regional farmers, if they're cooperating, they're building this biogas facility, all of them are bringing the animal slurry into this biogas facility, including the maybe a waste of the municipality, which is biodegradable. And then after this biodigestion process, you'll get the methane gas, which you can use to produce electricity and sell it to a market. But the excess heat, which is actually your product, which is not sellable, you can use for your local community needs in building greenhouses, in growing vegetables in the spring and in the autumn, and supply the fresh vegetables to your local communities. So it has to be the interlinked projects and the interlinkages between the three pillars, of course, economical, ecological, including the climatic, and very important, social. So then the benefit will be your health, your climate change mitigation, and your economical activities, including a lot of labor power. Another example I can give. In Lithuania, we all are thinking how to diversify our farming sector, the cash crops I have. And there is scientists are now talking about more functional food. They're talking about more healthy food. For example, omega-3 can improve, if you feed proper feed to your chickens, can improve a lot of different cardiovascular diseases and a lot of healthy claims like that, and it's proven. We know that EFSA, the European Food Safety Authorities, are allowing, if you're using proper feeds and improving the omega-3 substance in the final product, you can claim that it is more healthier product. And then, for example, our natural way would be to grow more linseed. And linseed would be traditional in Lithuania. We can use that partly as a feed for our chicken, maybe for eggs, maybe for chicken breast itself, maybe for cows and milk. And then you have three ways of net profit. You have economical, you have your health profit, because your society is eating a lot more healthier, and at the same time you have all the social benefits and environmental benefits, because you have a crop rotation and everything. So this sustainable, inclusive bioeconomy and local food systems, we have to be more, look for more inclusiveness, more kind of different ways to cooperate and incorporate that into one system. And for me, this is unanswered questions, and the more we'll start discussing that, the more we'll show the good examples that we can see all over the Europe, the better our systems will become.
Thank you very much, for your explanation and supporting Tali's presentation. And what I hear, who would like to react? And now, Mindaugas, I will switch you a little bit later, okay? I'm going to the auditorium. And what I hear, who would like to react, this inclusive, sustainable development, what it is?
It's that we can work in the principle who was mentioned in the panel earlier, We can real beginning private, public and NGO partnership, because community in the countryside we have so local, so nice, but very often food for schools, for local schools, we take from towns or from one company. And of course, it's a very big and stupid thing. I'm very happy to see apple in our halls, but I think that you can see Lithuanian schools or Latvian schools. I very surprised if we see such apples in countryside school. And of course, it's a very big mistake from school principals and from local private firms. And of course, we can learn to just not only talk, but begin real partnership together.
Thank you. Who would like to react? Karl-Heinz, how in Germany, in Norway, in Portugal, in Spain, in Italy, do we have this local food systems there, and how they developing this?
I think I heard a lot from Talis already, which describes nicely the diversity we have. We have really everything next to each other. Very industrial production, very local, artisanal. We have appreciation of quality products and willingness of consumers to pay more, those who can afford it. But we have all these things next to each other, and I would also argue almost everywhere. There is a different emphasis, like if I look in Tuscany, is probably the most prominent example where you appreciate food quality and culture and direct connections. It has a long history. It has always been like that, and probably in France it's a bit similar. I don't find that in Germany, maybe a bit in Bavaria. But also in the same places we have this enormous rationalization in food production and specialization and concentration. The retailers are becoming bigger. So we have all these different things going on at the same time. And now a new factor is coming in, and I think that wasn't mentioned so far, it's digitalization. The information technology, the social networks, social media. So theoretically, as we heard also from presentations in the morning, it can speed up certain trends, but it can also kick off completely new things that producers, even small producers, small farmers, can get directly in touch with consumers. And so a lot of things are becoming possible nowadays that were not possible only 5 years ago. And we have this abundance of information about food and all what's connected with it, climate, and so on and so forth. So I think in a way I'm happy with the coexistence of these different things, but I also sense that the incentive system, and that means the frameworks, regulation, economics, the way markets are functioning, that plays a massive role. And there are many analysts, colleagues of us, who would argue the food system is broken. Yeah? That's the title of some journal articles, peer-reviewed, they produce lots of evidence. And we have massive problems also in the food system. A lot of the emissions are still related to farming, even if farming could be a sink overall, but it depends on the farming practices. And so you have all these different facets. I think the one that we shouldn't neglect is the enormous new possibilities of digitalization, and which links also with your other topic, smart villages. Theoretically, a lot of innovation is possible, in a good way, maybe in a better way.
Yeah, but yes, we are going to the co-creation process. We are going to the integration process. A lot of processes. Do we manage these processes? Because we know that it is good thing, and Talis said that
Hey, guys.
yes, it is big profit, but
Hey,
you
good.
see, Mindaugas is not keeping quiet, and he again want to speak, and Mindaugas, you would like to speak again, or not? Or I can switch off you.
I think I'm okay, so all the best conference for all of you down there.
Okay, thank you.
Bye.
Bye. So my question is, we need, and in previous session and during the presentations, it was a lot of talks about technologies. But we have a lot of technologies. Do we have social technologies, social innovation, social methods, how to do this? For example, everybody is saying that, yes, we need sustainability. Yes, we need knowledge-based society. But how to do this? Through Facebook, yeah, but society are going older. In rural areas, we have society which don't use digital information systems and so on. How we can manage? And now I'm going to
I see
Jurgita.
Vilma want to transit from one topic to another. Very, thinking how to do this smooth transition, and I think Talis already mentioned in the presentation social innovations as being the human relationship innovation, and I'm thinking, when we talk about this all nice words, circular economy, digitalization, and some things even hard to pronounce, and when we think about the progress in human relationship, did any? I mean, any progress in that? If you compare the progress that we did in technology, I mean, if we say exclusion in Lithuania is even getting worse and worse, notorious in exclusion, and especially if we compare, and exclusion, I mean, it touches every part of our lives. In education, exclusion means that kids are not having the same opportunities and not opening the potential. In the health terms, it's the same thing. So we still have slavery, and it's not somewhere in India. We have kids who work as slaves in London from Lithuanian villages. Like really, in America, they recently had case. So if you took like perspective of, let's say, 300 years and how we developed in technology and how we developed in our relationship as humans, I think we are getting worse. We need more and more psychologists. We need more and more, help to communicate with each other. And digitalization does not really always helps. So I think when we talk about social innovations, we really need to remember that our subject here is human relationship. And probably we could also, import some technologies how to do circular social innovations, because I think we have different institutions like schools, social systems that are not really working close to each other because the result is so bad. It's really bad. So that's, I was not didn't prepare presentation, but maybe 3 questions I wanted to touch. So one is why social innovation is needed in rural areas, why rural areas needed for social innovations, and what we really can do about it. So I think, I think I answered mostly of the first questions. We really need social innovations in rural areas because exclusion is like really big. And it seems that all this nice concept doesn't help. So we need to think how to work differently. Why we need for innovations rural areas, I like very much what you mentioned before, that we need to think differently, not from the top to down, but what we also in my organization we say that innovation should happen there where problem exists, that people who knows the best the problem, they know solution to. So you shouldn't put innovations from somewhere, top to down. So we need innovation to happen inside of where the problem exists, not to bring it from somewhere. And what we all can do about it, I think it's a lot of things we probably could do. It's about the the finances, I think it's very clear that rural areas doesn't need projects anymore, right? Like all those short-term projects that doing something nice, but that's why I believe in entrepreneurship, social entrepreneurship, because it offers the long-term solutions. It's give people opportunity to really be owners of their lives, because when you be just part of someone's project is so totally different. So I think entrepreneurship and innovation kind of gives people ownership and responsibility for their lives. And I think a lot of that to do with the much more flexible finances that is needed to people to be able to control what they want to do in the rural areas. It's also very much to do about the trust in society, that you trust people who want to do innovations instead of having lots of control, you know. And in general, I think we should just apply the same methods as, you know, because like in my organization, we work more like with the startup mindset when we support enterprises. So not the same mindset as difficult EU programs supporting. So we need somehow to easy things and start to work human to human instead of institution to human. So this is my probably would be insight or suggestion how to really, why it's so important to have social innovations and what we can do as different organizations.
For your words and what I catch, yes, that how to work differently from bottom up. And now I am inviting Dalia, this bottom-up approach, how you started with your school or small theater, how you work with the children in Molėtai district. It is, I just can say for foreigners that Molėtai, it is far away from Vilnius, from Kaunas, from Vilnius not a lot, 50 kilometers, 60 kilometers, but it is already peripheral area. So I would like to ask Dalia to say some experience to share, how you are working.
Yeah, thank you for this possibility, really, to say what we are doing right now. So at the first beginning, I want to ask all audience, could you please raise your hand if you remember your childhood, your holiday, summer holiday, and you spend it in some nature, in some grandmother's house, some smells, some foods, some warmth.
All of us.
So, and you imagine we are professional actors, and when we started to spend our summertime in village, really with our kids, in real village in Molėtai region, and in my head, it was that summer holiday, kids running in the fields, have a lot of neighbors, summer friends. And you know, we noticed that it's not the same now. It's changed. Now village kids usually, what they do on summertime, you know, they just sit in front of computer, on TV, on devices. And we got a shock, and then we found out the problem. The problem that in cities, kids during school year have more possibilities to attend some arts, some more possibilities, like on summers, city kids go to travels, to summer camps, and village kids, they have no such big range of arts in school, and they have no holidays, have no summer camps, like they have no possibility. The families are not rich, and in the head they don't, it's not priority. So, and our theater with this problem went to local authorities, to schools, and we created a summer camp for village kids, and I will show some photos.
I will.
And this was
This is
project,
pictures possible to see, yeah.
but we thought about how it could be sustainable, how we can do change in society about this, how we could help village kids, and how we could join a circle of authorities and schools and kids and families. And we launching now a social entrepreneur activities. Now it's beginning. We are doing Drąsių kalvė. It means place where brave and full-minded and open people born for the future. So we will implement an art method, interactive art method, where these kids could come to Farmstead, to the place where we will work with them, together with psychologists, together with artists, together with people and travelers, and it will widen their yes, and we hope it will be our input into open and brave and ambitious society in the future. It's one of examples, just if, yeah.
Okay, thank you. But Jurgita will say that social enterprises, social entrepreneurship, yeah, social business, we're just starting, and it is just few examples we have, yeah?
I think it depends very much, of the naming, because I don't think that the concept is really new. I mean, people who were entrepreneurial and who wanted to change the world ever exist. They always existed. We just didn't call them social entrepreneurs. So now it's also difficult when we want to find a number or to size the market. Social entrepreneurship is hard to say because some organizations, they meet all criteria, but they just don't call them social enterprises. If you have a center who is teaching kids from the village some, how to master their skills, and they return the profit back to organization, and they are able to sustain themselves, social enterprise. But they just, doing this, and they never thought that they, I remember also when I started my project, when I wanted to collect the products and services that NGOs are doing and try to sell them in the market. And someone said, this is social enterprise. So someone gave me a title, and I thought, okay, well, I will Google what is that. And it took me about 8 years, and now I'm head of this research organization in Baltics. But I'm just now a bit with the irony saying that I don't think is a new thing. It's maybe you could say that it's more like Ribble thing, and it started when government started to. It started very often in the crisis when government didn't have money to support old NGOs that were just, living, having day centers and just asking for money. And then when the government's lack of money, they say, okay, now you go and live on your own. So it's not always that entrepreneurship is started because of the good thing. It's just that people, started to see how they can make the living themselves and survive. So I think it's not very new, but I think we really need to make it sexy so young people want to do that. And I think especially, sorry. I think I'm getting a bit cold. Especially in Nordic countries, they see as, the junior generation thing, because you can combine the purpose and you can combine the living. So I think we just need to take the old concept and make them look nice.
And look nice, and maybe all these concepts have to be transformed according to the local area, according to the local needs, according to the people needs, pupil needs, and children needs. And now I'm moving to Giedre topic, and so I understand that we need partnership, yeah? We need partnership horizontally and vertically, and special things that we need this new social innovation technologies, how we can do this.
I think I just know that in all countries we have a lot of social entrepreneurship ideas and innovations. we not have network, worldwide network, or just local. In Lithuania, we don't have network. I mentioned that I am represent NGO network who call NGO Confederates for Children, and we together have 70 organizations. And of course, this 70 organizations, they split their initiatives, their ideas, and their experiments in social business every day on their Facebook. And of course, they know, they learn from each other. And I just imagination how it's in Italy, how you spread and making food, healthy food in some region. And of course, in Lithuania, we have some region, Degučių sūris, or some other initiatives who could grow from family business. But social business are alone, and they are working alone. I'm very happy that Dalia mentioned that have municipality and school support, but mostly just farmers in same country don't share their good quality products with school, and school are closed from local farmers. I think it's a problem for us to find right people, because we have a lot of talented people. I just imagine and remember Šiaulėnų community in Ignalina, via my master degree, a leader for community, and how it's social business. Mariona Lukoševičienė, excellent person. And from little country community, she have a lot of social business initiatives. But she shares not only, in beginning she shares only with community, involved community members in sharing food in different market. Just now she are famous in region because she become a member of Ignalina board, town board, and represented and includes themselves in politician work, and I am very happy about that. As a lady, she work in very little country library, but Rasa Žvirblienė in Užuguostis, and now Užuguostis community become a very famous country community in all the Lithuanian, because they are making, they are first, I think, making cinema night, looking and people from, young people from Vilnius and from Kaunas come to the cinema, watching films, new films and so on. They have a very famous winter festivals, and not only students who are study or young people who are lost this little country, they come to this very nice events to little country. And all young people was very proud to be a part of this community and share, because they have Facebook, and we have very nice school. You know that, of course, like in Lithuania, like in all Europe, in countryside are not so many children, and sometimes schools are closing. But those schools who take a multifunction idea and establish multifunctional centers, they become a very open and a very innovative. For example, one of first was Sudeikė. It's Sudeikė Multicultural Center. It was very nice school, renovated, and put a lot of European money for that. But for the school, it was not possible to live. But when they become a multifunctional center, when they become to involve poor families for washing clothes, to social consult, when they beginning to create culture events for communities, they become famous in all the Lithuanian, and just now schools and young people like to have this place for summer camps because it's a wonderful place. And of course, this idea is not too easy to create to reality. You need leaders. You need leaders who can be community leader, who can be maybe teacher, or maybe farmer, or private or social entrepreneur in this region. But you can give little support. And I think the best of example, it was one of the first Prime Minister initiative program leader, when very simple money was spread to countryside community. It was very easy to get a grant for very practical things which was decided by community. And it just put in all our Lithuanian countrysides a lot of social initiatives. And for just now, we can just involve all of them in one network and beginning to split our ideas, good idea, between all the Europe. Because ideas and innovative social things, of course, we are not very successful. Social capital in Legatum indexes, we are not very nice in this rank. And just now, for last year, we become for two places for the top, but we are not in first 20 lines, and we are not so empathic, and all researchers say that we are very individualistic like Latvian too. But I think that social entrepreneurship are very modern, and green innovation just now is modern and very popular between young people, and I think it's our hope.
Mm-hmm. And now I am turning to again regional food systems, yeah, and so social entrepreneurship. I think it is part of local food systems, and social entrepreneurs maybe can be as center figure or leader of local food systems, because local or regional food systems, because yes, we have strong farms, we have small or big farms, but they are developing the food supply chain by themselves, and for them it is very difficult to collaborate, and maybe it can be like regional food hubs or new forms of the collaboration, because in our case, in Lithuanian case, we are really afraid for the cooperation, and it comes from the history maybe, but I think that clusters or hubs can be like space for the collaboration, where the farmers, especially farmers who are diversified, can play the main role. And rural communities, as ITER community, can support this kind of models. What do you think? Who have to start, or maybe who can play the main role that rural areas become more smart and more sustainable, maybe, because smart, it's still early to talk. Of course, it's our task, our vision, but we are seeking for the sustainability now. Okay.
Just very short comment before giving, because I think it's very as you said, I think we would get a Nobel Prize for discovering how we can improve cooperation and collaboration in Lithuania. I think that would be the biggest goal of social innovation, how to do that. And I don't know, we probably should have some kind of group psychotherapy as a country to really start to collaborate and practice, not only on the paper. And I totally agree that this is, if you want to have a hub or anything, you really need to talk to each other. And maybe you have a recipe because you have working in so many countries.
No, I don't have a recipe, but I liked your story a lot about the leader-funded initiatives and how much can be achieved. That's really a kind of seed money. You're building capacities, you're activating people, you're empowering people in the best possible sense. And it's a bit similar with your arts project. I mean, I really like these grassroots projects because that is where you change people's lives and you have an impact. And it starts at a local level, but LEADER is a European-wide initiative. The struggle is always to get more LEADER funding available. And that's the struggle with sectoral agricultural policies. And I think that's about societal interests in the very end. If we find that these grassroots initiatives are more important than, I'm being a bit radical now, sorry, are more important than providing subsidies, in particular to farms that are already very large and who say they are competitive, then something is wrong. I mean, we have these differences in society. There are people cut off from developments, in poverty, sometimes no more access to schools or whatever because schools or railway lines or whatever is shut down. It's too costly. But I mean, these are huge parts of the population, and we cannot just simply follow a sectoral policy then. So, and that is a political struggle. I think the more we get these initiatives, you were talking about the politician who became a politician. I mean, in the end, it boils down to that. What do we want as a society, and where's the money going? Sorry, radical.
Yeah, this is a very good discussion on what kind of instruments could serve. And social entrepreneurship, social businesses were mentioned as one. And we can also think to which sector of production. Is it production? Is it processing segment? Where do they fit more? I have two good examples, very recent ones from catering industry. We organized a project meeting in Riga and we invited a social caterer, and they employed Syrian migrant workers who prepared their home food and with a story. So they that wise became more accommodated in the society. And recently attended another project meeting in Italy, and the caterer was, I think the waiters were with a sort of disability, mental disability people. I explained several times that I need coffee, but those people get in jobs. And I have been interviewing also our Latvian farmers who participate in youth employment, subsidized employment program. So the farmers could also be part of social enterprise, not fully social business, but as a part. So there's a matter of what policy instruments and programs are targeted to support those social businesses. So, and I also think that a lot can be done by movements themselves, consumer movements, and let's see how far they develop towards. I ran a class on sustainable development, and in the first class I asked my students to tell about their personal sustainability practices, and surprisingly most of those practices were related to food. And young people are very aware of plastic waste, and they develop small initiatives, and they accumulate. Probably they are organized in movements and zero waste, etc., etc. There are grassroots which we as leaders or captains could see how they develop and help them to grow.
Thank you. And yes, and we have in theoretical way social farming. We have in theoretical way community-supported farming, community-support eater supporting farming. So we have these different models for the farming, but still this innovation's very slow. And you know, we are in development and in very high speed now. Maybe you know that our GDP are growing up, and sometimes in the news, journalists are saying that European Union is already so slow compared with us. So I am just going to the auditorium, and for the auditorium is very hard task. It is to summarize what you hear and what you understand from our discussion. Did you like this? Do you like this? So what you understand? Who would like to summarize? Nothing? Oh, it was wrong experiment. Okay, I'm moving.
Starting from the artistic part, probably I will come back with your question. Are the farmers part of the rural society?
Yeah, it was said during the plenary session, when we are talking about changes, we are talking about huge, big farms, but not about farmers. Is it farm? Is it small farm are part of agriculture society? Do they, yeah, farmers, do they participating in the food system?
Well, it's a very good question, a very important question, and I think small farms, almost by definition or necessarily, they need to be closer to their local network. Otherwise, they couldn't make it in many respects. They live from that in income combination, in exchanging machinery, services, whatever, in joint marketing. But I'm wondering about the larger farms. Are they part of rural society? And how much and in what ways? And it's a good question to ask.
Yeah, and yeah, it was my thought also that we work with a lot of with culture ministry, education ministry, local and schools, but we don't work with work with farmers. Yeah, but there are a lot of them in the area. Yeah, I should take in mind.
That's why I think we should think about circular social innovations that could really, take all the ecosystem around the child, around the person, around the human.
Who would like?
I don't have. I want to suggest one solution, which could be. Which could solve these problems about what you are talking. And I am a PhD student, and I am doing research in one social innovation, which is called thematic villages. We have these villages in Lithuania, in Latvia, in Poland, in Austria. And it is the thematic space for rural and cities communities cooperation, communication, and co-creation. And it could be the space for children camps and the space for local food popularization. And what I want to say that their teaming strategy can help us to solve exclusion and other social problems and economic problems. And it is one of the ways how to solve these problems about what you are talking. Thanks.
Okay, we found one more model. It is local food, regional food systems, social entrepreneurship, and thematic villages. But always we are talking about the space and actors who are acting in this space. And I am really agreed that we have to speak about the space, about boundary objects, yeah, how we can develop. So I am really thankful, special thanks for debaters, for key speakers and for the participants, and for the debaters I have some small gifts, so don't move from these places. And special thanks for Aušrinė, and after that you are welcome to see what we created during 2-hour panel sessions. And what else? For the conference participants, yeah, we have 1 hour with a meeting of the scientists, yeah, and after that will be bus to move to cultural party. Okay, thank you. And another very important thing, you have questionnaires. And if you can, fill full these questionnaires and leave, and to give these questionnaires to Dalia. We are responsible for what you get from these 2 sessions. Thank you very much.